really important weekend, not just in the ACC and the Big 12 where they played football, not just in the Big 10 where they had a lot of rumors and whispers about playing football, but in the SEC. They are, as of yesterday, a couple of weeks away from teeing it up themselves, and we have been talking a whole lot, specifically at Georgia and Alabama, about different position battles. Going to start at Georgia. We told you on Thursday, DeJuan Mathis has made this a serious quarterback battle. We not only told you that, after Jamie Newman opted out and it was assumed JT Daniels had that job on lock, not really. We actually thought and still think, coming out of this weekend, DeJuan Mathis is the favorite in the clubhouse to land the starting quarterback job at the University of Georgia. We hinted at that, and I also told you this was an important weekend. Like as big as it was for other reasons in places where they're actually playing football, this was a huge weekend in the SEC and for Georgia because they got to decide on a quarterback. This is not a dynamic where they can afford to take this thing into the season. You got to choose a guy because you're running totally different offensive packages. You're running totally different styles of offense with one versus the other. One's JT Daniels, one of them's DeJuan Mathis. So I'm looking, as the games are going on elsewhere in the country, I'm looking at dogs247.com yesterday afternoon. Jake Rowe and the guys, Kip Adams, Rusty, they always have great intel after scrimmages over there. And sure enough, Kirby Smart, obviously watching late kick when he was preparing for the scrimmage, fashioned that scrimmage where DeJuan Mathis took every first-team rep in the entire first half of that scrimmage. That's not an accident. That is that coaching staff sitting around saying, we got to figure out what this dude has. Like, we think that coaching staff thinks he's too good to keep off the field. That was the mentality going into the latter part of last week. They had to find out in that scrimmage. Now, the best intel that Jake and the guys had over at Dogs 24/7 was had a good day. There were some positives to take away. There were some negatives to take away. This is not a dude who's going to move it up and down the field on that Georgia defense, nor, for that record, is pretty much anyone else in the country. But now where do we sit? And where we sit is I still think, if I had to bet my money today, DeJuan Mathis is the ultimate starter there. Run blocking well ahead of pass protection is the other very important piece of intel coming from Georgia. And why that's important is because when I marry how that offensive line looks with the two styles of quarterback we have that we could potentially go with here, and I know run blocking's there. Pass pro, it's iffy. And I know outside of George Pickens, I got some talented but question mark types at receiver. And I know I got one of the best defenses in the country. What style of quarterback gives me the best chance to win? I think it's the 6'6" guy who is a serious threat with his legs and who can fall forward and pick me up 3 tough yards when I need it. That's why I think DeJuan Mathis is going to start at quarterback for Georgia. By no means is that settled yet, but that is my feel on that quarterback situation right now. At Alabama, I'm going to be guarded in how I phrase this, but when you've been around a little while and you've talked to people at various programs, you learn which ones to listen to and which ones not to listen to. You all know the type that will tell you, 14 of these freshmen are going to start this year. Everybody looks great. We're going undefeated and could possibly challenge in the AFC West. Well, that's great, and that sounds all well and good, and that plays well on the message board. That's not reality. So you learn at Alabama and everywhere else who to listen to. So let me put it to you like this. The folks I've learned to listen to over the years, the folks who, if anything, err on the side of pessimism over optimism, to a man, they have touted Will Anderson, who is a true freshman outside linebacker, as one of the most impressive players they've ever seen in this program, period. This program being Alabama, the one that wins a national title about every other year on average, the one that's pumped out who knows how many dozens of players to the NFL now, Will Anderson is a guy who rocketed up our 24/7 Sports individual player ratings, and by signing day, he was in the top 10, and, some people cried Bama bump. Conveniently, they don't revisit that allegation after the ones who get the bump and happen to be committed to Alabama end up shining. But I digress, not to defend the Rankings Council. Will Anderson is going to be a stud. Will Anderson is going to play a ton of minutes from day one at Alabama. He was part of an insane edge rusher class that they signed. And you wondered, Drew Sanders, Chris Braswell, Anderson, like which one of those guys is going to be the first to pop? All of them may. I'm telling you, Will Anderson is going to pop and going to be really, really good. Now, outside of that, Nick Saban yesterday used a word, and if you've listened to Nick Saban a while, there are just certain phrases he uses. And when he says his offense was efficient, that means they had a really, really, really good day. He doesn't so much care about the big plays. He cares about efficiency. Because ultimately, when you're as talented as they are, that's going to win 99 times out of 100. So here's what I left getting some intel on Alabama scrimmage thinking. It's all well and good to talk about efficiency, and it's great to have these freshman standouts that are going to be on the field early and often, but then I watched Clemson play. And if Ohio State and the Big Ten get their way, we're going to watch Justin Fields and Ohio State play. And here's what I sit here thinking. I sit here thinking to myself, I know how they're going to start the season. I know Mac Jones is starting there. I think I know he's the best option for them right now. But they also have a guy named Bryce Young, who we know has virtually limitless upside and certainly has the best upside and best physical tools on that roster, any quarterback. That's what we think we know. Number one player in the country was Bryce Young this last recruiting cycle. If the time comes where they end up in a playoff scenario against Clemson, who do we think, rhetorical question here, who do we think at quarterback is best equipped by that point to put them in position to beat Clemson or put them in a position to beat Ohio State? That's the question I wonder about with Alabama. Because with some changes that I'm about to talk about, no elements, Colin, it'll take like a minute. With some changes that I'm about to talk about at A&M, this is the overwhelming favorite in the SEC West right now. To me, there is not a preseason close second to Alabama in the SEC West. So I'm not thinking about SEC West. I'm thinking way down the road, way down the road. So we've got a lot of time to figure that out. What I was talking about with A&M, who I, a few weeks ago, thought was the biggest threat to Alabama in the West, Jamon Osborne is out. He has opted out. That was their best returning receiver. Now, a lot of my Aggie fans will argue, we got some really talented younger options. Yeah, you do. I think Damon Demas is going to end up being better than Osborne would have been this year. Point being, he hadn't played a down in college yet. And so now they're down Baylor Cupp, the big tight end who was returning from injury and now has to go on the shelf again. And now they're down Osborne, and so they've had some opt-outs there. I don't know what A&M is right now. I don't know what LSU is right now. I don't know what Auburn is right now. And while you never technically know who anyone is until they play, and maybe even after they play, I don't think there's a close second to Alabama in the West. As we start the season, I don't think that. So that's what's going on in the SEC right now.